Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now February 4th of 2024, and there's been a lot of things going on with all divisions over at Disney. I'm sure that most of you are very well aware about this, but we got divisions like Walt Disney Animation Studios, Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, even Pixar, that's going through a lot of difficulties, not just due to their lackluster content in recent months, but also all due in part to Bob Iger's cost containment plan and his cost-cutting measures that's impacting everything across the board. Funding for, of course, everything related to the budgets of these projects, even, of course, incomes for the cast and the crew getting downgraded, even firings on board and ready to actually go into full effect by the remaining of this year for Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, and more. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, Deadpool 3, it's the only MCU movie arriving in theaters this year until we have many expensive failures on the horizon for 2025. We've got Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Blade, and among others that are going to be released throughout that year. Now, focusing on this film, we know that there's been a lot of drama stirring around, revolving for, of course, Ryan Reynolds, Sean Levy, the director, Rhett Reese, and Paul Wernick, the writers of this film, and let's not forget about Hugh Jackman, alright, the main star alongside Ryan Reynolds in this movie. Now, Bob Iger, we know that he's been pushing for DEI in the third act of this film through planned reshoots for this spring, and it's been an ongoing mess for many of the creatives behind this film. Now, with that being all said, with the Deadpool 3 drama still an ongoing issue for both the creatives and the Disney heads in the back and forth battle, one major development has much to do with Hugh Jackman and his reaction toward Disney's push for the gender-swapped X-Men in the third act of Deadpool 3. As it turns out, in one crucial update to the ongoing push that Disney is pressing for the various scenes for reshoots this spring, both Hugh Jackman and director Sean Levy recently stood up against Disney in a desperate move to put a complete end to both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige's push for gender-swapped versions of classic X-Men characters. And though Ryan Reynolds and the writers were successful in convincing Disney to erase some of the plans for those scenes, one still remained, as it turns out, that involved Wolverine fighting against gender-swapped versions of Magneto, Cyclops, and even Sabretooth. Now, this reaction from Hugh Jackman was reportedly so strong and aggressive toward Disney that it rattled throughout all of Marvel Studios over how Jackman absolutely refused to shoot this scene for reshoots, which were set to begin by the last few days of March that would go on through all of April before finalizing the movie. A surprising update to this drama is that Jackman did do rehearsals for the scene, as it turns out, with his stunt double and other stunt doubles to get ahead, of course, and to get an idea of how the action scenes would be mapped out through patterns. The aspect that Jackman totally had issues with was how the gender-swapped versions of Magneto, Cyclops, and Sabretooth were going to engage in a 3-on-1 battle and defeat Wolverine with ease. Cringeworthy dialogue that was improvised by Kevin Feige and passed down to Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick were also demonstrating the rehearsal, and after numerous setbacks with the rehearsal of the scene before planned reshoots, Hugh Jackman decided to speak up with Sean Levy. This is where both Sean and Hugh took matters into their own hands and faced Disney about how damaging this scene would be for the third act. The planned footage that was set to be shot was going to essentially dismantle this Wolverine character, where he was unrecognizable by the way Disney wanted Hugh to act in those scenes, with the gender-swapped versions of those classic characters. Now, this is where Bob Iger and Kevin Feige were giving Hugh and Sean a hard time about how they wanted to insert the scene into the third Deadpool film to create new iterations of characters. Things got so intense to the point that Jackman gave an ultimatum that he would be unwilling to attend the world premiere and would be ready to face the consequences, but that he wasn't going to shoot this scene. Disney shockingly gave in to both Sean and Hugh's demands to put a stop to filming this scene for reshoots. However, there are still many other challenges ahead that the cast and crew are facing from Disney's push for DEI into the third act of the film for reshoots during this spring. Now guys, before I get to the big conclusion about all of this, let me just say one thing. Now, we know that Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, they've been really trying to defend this movie, not just for themselves, but also for the fans. And you don't really see that often, right? You don't see many actors doing something like that. Sure, we've had actors out there like Henry Cavill, a great and fine example of someone who stands up for what's right when it comes to a project that they are working on, to respect the source material, respect for what would make the most sense for the core fan base. You know, you don't want to drive away your fans, right? You don't want to do that. That's the last thing that Disney wants to do right now. And that's exactly why I say Bob Iger is a terrible CEO. He's just very much stubborn in doing the complete opposite of what fans want to see, either on the big screen or on, of course, streaming. Which, by the way, there's already a lot of people just abandoning ship from Disney Plus. It's not looking good at all. So what's interesting about this, again, is the fact that they really were pushing for these gender-swapped iterations of Magneto, Cyclops, Sabretooth, and I have no doubt in my mind that this is all connected to some aspects of the multiverse. We know that the multiverse is becoming an increasingly big reason for Disney to justify of gender swapping and or race swapping classic X-Men characters or just regular characters in the MCU. They're doubling down on that for Phase 6 and even for Phase 7. So moving onwards, this already created tensions between Kevin Feige and Hugh Jackman, and it's creating an impact on his return for Avengers Secret Wars after Disney played games with the production of the film with false promises and sneaky strategies that only created a mess for production. So again, I mean, this is why I always say that Bob Iger is a liar, alright? He's full of false promises, he strings along what he calls the customers, and the shareholders are treated unfairly. You know, I don't even know why shareholders at this point in time are just not speaking up and or cutting their ties with Disney. Now, we know the top shareholders are the bigger problem. You know, you got BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street funding all this nonsense into movies connected to Marvel, Star Wars, or just Disney in general, alright? So it's very hard for that entire thing to break apart. It's really, at the end of the day, not a CEO problem, not a board of directors issue, though it is, but it's also related to those shareholders that are really funding and letting the money pour into this company that's influencing people like Bob Iger and the board to keep things up in terrible ways for pop culture. So again, I think that what's going on here, well, we've had many wins and losses between this ongoing battle between the creators against Disney, and it's exactly why I say Deadpool 3 may not be a consistent good movie. It may have its good moments and bad moments, an emotional roller coaster, if you will. The way things are going on right now, it may not be consistent, so we'll have to wait and see. So overall, I would really love to hear what you all have to say about this ongoing issue between the creators, Hugh Jackman going up against Disney and all, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.